Welcome to a new time. Welcome to a new era.
This ain't WCW. This ain't Monday Night Raw. This ain't SmackDown. This ain't even WWE.
Feel the wrath of the pythons. You shall feel the wrath of Hulkamania. This is where the power lies.
And that's the bottom line, because Stone Cold said so.
He put hard times on Dusty Rhodes and his family.
I got a 66 and 2/3 chance of winning because Kurt Angle knows he can't beat me and he's not even going to try.
It's time to step into the squared circle and get it done.
Welcome everyone to Legends and Champions. Andy Evans here, coming to you from the United Kingdom. It's been an interesting time. It's been a really interesting time. So as you all know, there was no show last week. And this is the reason why. So Stefan and I, we're pretty good at recording the shows ahead of time. And this one is no different. We recorded the main body of the show. And I was away for a couple of days. So my plan while I was away last week was to get everything ready, download it all, and edit it on the train on the way home. Now, I was in London. Now, that all sounds well and good, right? And it's normal practice, right? I normally work on the train, so I thought, you know what? I'm going to do some editing. It's all going to be good. But I made the mistake of putting my microphone in my suitcase. As easy, right? You think that's not a problem. You're just going to open up the suitcase bag when you're on the train. You'll get the microphone out. You plug it in. Done. Yeah, no. You see, my suitcase in London Waterloo, the UK's, or one of the UK's busiest train stations, the capital's train station, got stolen. Yeah. So I lost my case, the microphone, and a few other bits and pieces. Luckily, all my electronics, my laptops, my iPad was in my bag, which was with me. So there was a very quick message to Mike going, we're going to take a little bit of a hiatus because I don't have any kit anymore. But we're back because I've got a new microphone and I'm now giving you this intro and giving you the show that should have happened last week, which is all about general managers. Not general managers, all about managers. I don't even know what I'm going on about. But thanks for bearing with us. And that's what Mike was alluding to this past Sunday on Maguire on Wrestling, the fact that my kit got nicked. But anyway, we are back. Coming up this week on Legends, it's a unique show. It's a different one. We are going to be talking about the greatest managers. We're going to be doing a countdown of managers from past and present, talking about really what makes them unique, and we're going to be giving our take on who we think is the greatest manager of all time. I don't think that's too hard to really work out who that is, but we're going to be discussing it in more detail. Now, you can keep up to date with everything that's happening across Celebrate Wrestling, literally by going onto social media, facebook.com/Celebrate Wrestling. Find us, like us, join us, answer a few questions because that's what Meta tells us we have to do, and Mike will let you in. Once you are in, you're in, and you can communicate and chat with so many wonderful wrestling fans, plus all of the hosts as well. Want to give a shout out to my tag team partner Stefan, who isn't very well at the moment. Get well soon, my friend. Hopefully bring you back. Next week's Legends might sound slightly different. We're going to go back to the one-man format, but we'll be doing Legends solo next week. Get well soon, my friend. Each and every week on Celebrate Wrestling, we bring you some of the best wrestling shows out there. And this weekend and this week have been no different because this past Saturday was alternate commentary table with Mitch and Dimitri, the wonderful guys from the Greek World Order, talking about the backlash, talking about the week that was in wrestling TV, and a very interesting debate, alternate scenario, whatever you want to call it, on who was the wrestler of the year from 1989. The finals, if you haven't heard it, I'm not going to spoil it for you, but the finals were either a bit of simply perfection. Let's put it that way. I kind of agree with what they said, but it's made me interested to work out how that would work for other companies. So stay tuned, because here on Legends, we might do something very similar. I'm not afraid to steal their gimmick. I've done it before, and they can do whatever they want. That's fun. Sunday nights, Maguire on Wrestling. Of course, Mike every week with Mr. Meltzer. The last couple of weeks, Dave's been on holiday, so he's been joined by Joe Alguinaldo. Some great debates and some great topics on Maguire on Wrestling. Check that out every Sunday right here on Celebrate Wrestling. And don't forget, if you subscribe to us on Spotify or on Apple or on Podbean, like and leave us a review. It helps us go up that algorithm. It helps us grow. And we do all of this for you. Just like the t-shirts. Mike has done a tremendous job producing the GWO and the Celebrate Wrestling t-shirts. I can't wait to see people post on social media with their t-shirts that they've bought. I mean, they're cracking. Absolutely brilliant. And what a week, or what a couple of weeks we've had in professional wrestling. I mean, if you think about, you're going back to Backlash now. I mean, that was 2 weeks ago. Saturday night's main event, of course, is coming up with John Cena facing off against R-Truth. That's going to be an interesting match. One that I'm really fascinated to see where it goes, because they kind of seem to be giving R-Truth a push. Who would have expected in the year that Cena goes bye-bye, R-Truth gets a main event, steel cage match on Saturday night's main event against the 17-time World Heavyweight Champion John Cena? Not me. Jeff Cobb debuts in the WWE. Nobody knows who he is, except the fans. Right, no, except the announcers. The fans don't even know who he is, but that's interesting. More dissension in the bloodline, in the new bloodline with Solo Sikoa. Hell of a lot happening, but we would be remiss on the show if we didn't reference the passing of Sabu a couple of weeks ago, and there will be a special episode of Legends upcoming on the life and the career of Sabu, and if anybody would like to be involved in that, please message me or Stefan directly, or leave a post on the Facebook wall, and we will use your comments. All right, let's get to it, shall we, people? This is Legends and Champions. We're going to a break. When we come back, we're talking managers. I'll see you after this.
The alternate commentary table, ACT, brought to you by the Celebrate Wrestling podcast feed. Listen, it's Mitch, it's Dimitri. We got this little pod thing that we do every single week where we talk about the week in wrestling and the way in which we do it from the other side of the railing, right, Mitch?
I like that.
We're coming at it because we love it, we hate it. The alternate commentary table, ACT. Download it anywhere where you're getting your podcasts. Cha-cha!
Welcome back, everyone, to Legends and Champions. Andy here. Andy, whoa. Andy here. Coughing his guts up. Joined, as always, by Stefan Bennett. Stefan, how you doing, good man?
Yeah, I'm not too bad, Andy. Yeah, the intros always seem to go a little bit wrong, don't they, lately?
No, it's at least I haven't called it the squared circle. And I haven't called it the alternate commentary table, and I haven't called it Too Many of Their Mics, and I haven't called it the Ministry of Slam, and I haven't called it the Total Wrestling Show. I have actually called it the proper name. Done a lot of shows.
Yeah. You've been around a bit, haven't you, when it comes to the old podcasting?
Well, I wonder where you're going to go there. I have been around a bit. Yeah, I've been around the pike a few times. Yeah. And I'll tell you what, though, very, very random. I have gone on a bit of a book binge recently, right? And I don't know why, but I've gone on a bit of a book binge. So obviously everybody knows that we picked up the Soraya Tough Boots, Hard Boots book, which was tremendous. I've also then gone and picked up David Penzer's book, which has been done in conjunction with Guy Evans, who wrote Nitro, called Sitting Ringside Volume 1, which is it's a manuscript, basically, covering everything from the CWF right up to the closure of WCW in 2001, with a load of documents like proper run sheets and presentation documents, all that type of thing in the back. It's tremendous. Volume 2 is coming out, which will be focusing on TNA and XWF. So I'm looking forward to reading that one. Then, okay, as well as that, I've just picked up Johnny Storm's Johnny Storm's book, which I'm still reading because we're bringing Johnny on, so I need to read it. Then I went and picked up Keith Elliott Greenberg's Bigger, Better, Badder. So wanted the proper copy of the book, so have that. And now I just ordered the AEW one that Keith is doing, which was announced last week, it looks tremendous. Keith's work is incredible.
Absolutely, yeah.
Got quite a few.
I've done the opposite. I've done the opposite. I've gone on a wrestling movie binge recently. I know. Yeah, indeed, because obviously there are quite a few which are obviously not very good. They're very questionable. Most of them are questionable. Do you know what? I tell you what, the one thing that's really frustrating me at the moment is I want to see that Queen of the Ring movie, and it's still not been released in any way, shape or form here in the UK. And I was surprised that the film apparently came out in the States last year. The UK didn't get a release. Apparently, we're supposed to be getting it digital sometime in May, but there's not been. It's been very hush-hush. But I thought, considering how successful to an extent the Iron Claw was, I actually expected this to get a similar sort of treatment. And obviously having people like Tony Storm, Camille, Naomi, and that all featuring in this, and James Cornette as well, in that as well. And Martin Cove, because I'm a big Karate Kid and Cobra Kai fan. And Martin Cove, Sensei Kreese, for those who remember Karate Kid and Cobra Kai, he's in the movie as well. So, there's a lot that I want to see. And Mickey James apparently plays the Fabulous Moolah in this as well. So I'm really intrigued to see this. But yeah, I can't find it anywhere to watch at the moment. So if anyone knows, let us know, because it would be greatly appreciated, because I want to see this. But yeah, I've been on a wrestling movies binge, and it included the likes of the Big Show's Knucklehead and Triple H's The Chaperone. so some really bad ones there, but you know.
Well, according to AI, Queen of the Ring was released in March over here in the UK, but can't
find it anywhere. Yeah,
I mean, it is going to be a good film. I wouldn't necessarily say that the Iron Claw got major publicity over here in the UK, although that is on Amazon Prime.
Oh, but I thought it did, and to be fair, it was all right with these sort of movies. They do change a few factual things. I thought that movie was incredibly dumble. Very, very well.
It was brilliantly.
I was blubbering in the cinema, the theatres for the American, our overseas friends. But yeah, the cinema, I was blubbing. I was there with my partner, who's not into wrestling, but she enjoyed the movie. But yeah, that towards the end, I blubbed, because you think about these people that I watched as a kid growing up, and you see all that sort of side of things, and it's just like, wow, this hits me right in the feels. So
it was good. They could have done more with it.
Yes,
but it was good. I thought Zac Efron played, the Von Out really well. It was an intriguing film. Emily Betts-Rickard, who plays Felicity Smoke in Arrow, is in Queen of the Ring. She's playing the title character. Yeah. When it is released, we will do something on Queen of the Ring.
Yeah, absolutely,
because it's old school, and that's what we do. Anyway, this week is all about the greatest wrestling managers of all time. And what we're going to do, I've got something stuck in my throat. What we're going to do is talk about some of those integral managers that really made an impact and crossed the line for professional wrestling. So I want to talk about a few of them that you maybe wouldn't consider, because I asked AI to give me a top 50 list. I asked Gemini to give me the top 50 greatest wrestling managers of all time. And I'm going to run you through that list very quickly, and we'll pick up a few as we go around. So number 50 on the list was Gentleman Chris Adams as a manager in WCCW. Joel Gertner, the quintessential stud muffin from ECW, came in at 49. Daphne, WCW TNA at 48. Gato from New Japan came in at 45. Don Callis surprisingly came in at 44. I thought he would have been.
I would have thought he would have been much higher up than that. Yeah.
I mean, Don Callis really has had quite a career within the managerial thing. If you think about the Truth Commission back in the day, where he was the Jackal, Cyrus the Virus on ECW, he played the USA Network representative on SmackDown, and then of course he was one of the EVPs in Impact, and obviously now as the manager in AEW of some of the most influential performers there. What is it about Don Callis though that makes him in this list as one of the greatest managers?
Oh, to be fair, I mean, obviously, I remember him from the early days of the Jackal with the Truth Commission. I was actually one of the very few people that actually quite liked the Truth Commission. I thought what they were, and that worked for them. Obviously, they didn't really get a major push, but it's difficult. They were in a time, when WWE was overloaded with factions at the time, and I just feel that it was a shame that they didn't have a bigger name, someone like could spearhead that group. But the Jackal, I like the fact that he would sit on commentary sometimes while the Truth Commission were working. Kurgan. I mean, who could forget the Kurgan in that group as well? That guy, talking about the first wrestler I ever saw that actually I felt intimidated by was the Kurgan, because obviously he's French in real life. And when he would just have that, he would have that. No, it was because he would have that menacing look. He would be beating the hell out of his opponents, and he would have that moment where he would just sort of stop, have that menacing look on his face, and then he would just have that in that deep, gruffy voice, just shout out something random in French really quick. You can never understand what he was saying, but he was scary as hell. But then, obviously, if we fast forward to his AEW career, it's definitely a resurgence of his career. It's because he's had some great talent to work with. He's been a focal point among some top stars in AEW, and it's and I think that's quite good for someone who they have their career, they've done what they've done, and then they sort of fade off for years, and then all of a sudden they come back, and then they're right back up top. They're prominent on television. They're prominent when they're involved in big storylines, and that it's like a rebirth. And to be fair to Don Callis, in the last sort of few years or so, and that he's done that, and he, for me, hasn't lost a step. He's still as menacing and as manipulative and whatnot as ever. And I like Don Callis. I think he's great.
I mean, it's an interesting one to look at. I mean, the other one on the list coming in at number 43, which really surprised me, was MVP. Of course, the manager of Bobby Lashley in the Hurt Business and the Hurt Syndicate. I mean, say what you will about this guy. He can talk. I think he's a better in-ring performer than what he is a manager, but the transition over into the managerial side is pretty good because he's definitely, led and given Bobby Lashley some character, which is very hard to do. Taz comes in at number 37 as a manager in TNA. He briefly managed Samoa Joe. We're seeing more about Taz now, manager of Hook, of course, father-son relationship. Let's move away from that one. Teddy Long, player.
Oh, my boy.
A beloved authority figure, started as a heel manager for Doom in WCW. Also competed within the NWA, and of course was SmackDown's general manager in the WWE and a referee. I think most people forget
he's done everything. Teddy Long, yeah, he's done everything. Teddy Long. I love Teddy Long. What's not to love about Teddy Long? And obviously, if you disagree with that statement, he'll make you go one-on-one with the Undertaker. So yeah,
player. I mean, the thing about Teddy Long was he was such a charismatic performer on the mic. Even back in 1991, when you watch Super Brawl, which we did a few months ago now, when we did Super Brawl and he was in the cage and it was the Battle of Doom, it was actual Butch Reed against Ron Simmons, and he's in that shark cage, hung over the thing. He could just do it, bringing out Johnny B. Bad, the eccentric Johnny B. Bad with the eccentric Theodore R. Long. The rivalry with Eric Bischoff in the WWE, he was, and
I got to meet him in Dallas in 2022, and it was a surprise because I didn't actually know he was there. And we obviously got a pick together. And I was talking, and I said to him, it's a shame that you've sort of gone away from WWE. And he just turned around and said, look, he said, I'm not going to diss WWE. They've been brilliant to me over the years. They've been so good to me. He said they're just in this period now where I don't get it, that they don't seem to be really know what they're doing. There's a lot of bizarre decisions being made, and he just and it's unfortunate that it's kind of gone that way. And I kind of got what he meant, because it was WrestleMania 38 wasn't exactly great, but it coming towards those final times under Vince, before obviously TKO would purchase and Triple H would kind of take over that, and Vince would eventually go. I kind of got what he meant, but even just meeting him in person, it's Teddy Long. It's not a character he's portraying. What you see on TV is what you get in real life. And honestly, I absolutely love the bones off of Teddy Long. He's, for years, since WCW to even now, anytime he makes a random appearance on TV, I'm here for it. I just love Teddy Long.
27 on the list is Colonel Robert Parker from WCW. 1994, 1995, the manager of some of the biggest heels in the business, including Harlem Heat, Booker T, and Stevie Ray when they first broke into WCW. One of the things that I remember about this one of the things that I remember about this Southern gentleman is the fact that, he used to come out with the cowboy suit, the cowboy hat, and like the old sheriff in the thing. And the relationship that he had with Sherry Martel, which led to the wedding, which then led to the attack by Medusa, who had just returned back to WCW following her World Wrestling Federation stint.
Yeah.
I mean, it was great to see the dude get his. Why am I saying dude?
I don't know why you're saying dude, but we'll run with it. If dude's what you've got, dude's what we'll have.
I just got dude in my head. My 6-year-old said dude to me. Number 26, I do not agree with the placement of this one. He is in my top 10, this guy. But for some reason, AI proves it doesn't know what it's talking about. Well, actually, they put him twice. That's interesting.
Okay.
They've put him number 27, number 26 for his WCW run, but number 7 for his World Wrestling Federation run.
Okay, who are we going with?
That is the man with the megaphone and the stable of heels, Jimmy Mouth of the South Hart.
No way is he that low down.
Memphis, WWF, WWE, WCW, and TNA. Like I said, he's in twice. He's in 7 in the top 10 for the WWF run and 26 for the WCW run. I think that's a load of rubbish.
It is. Yeah, it definitely goes to show that AI doesn't have a clue. It definitely doesn't. Jimmy Hart, I mean, if you say to anyone who's familiar with professional wrestling or has any knowledge from like the 80s, the 90s, and that, if you turn around and say, right, top 3 managers from the World Wrestling Federation, go straight away. Jimmy Hart is one of those 3 that comes out. Bobby Heenan's probably the other. Yeah, absolutely. And that surprises me. Jimmy Hart, I've never really been a fan of face Jimmy Hart since he aligned with Hogan in the 90s and I've never really been a fan of Jimmy Hart, the face manager. I always loved him as the heel manager, when he was managing people like Money Incorporated and Natural Disasters, to name a few, Hart Factor. Those days is pinnacle Jimmy Hart for me.
Yeah, I think I don't know. Jimmy Hart is a face I kind of got because he was just a killer manager as a heel. I liked the face Jimmy Hart, but actually he wasn't face for very long, was he? I mean, he was face for about a year in the WWF. Not even that. He was face for about 6 months in the WWF. And then obviously went to WCW following that and pretty much did a year as a face. And then it was the Dungeon of Doom with Kevin Sullivan, the Taskmaster. So I think he is much better suited to being a heel. But there is something about Jimmy Hart, face or heel, you kind of love the dude. And
I used to just love, when back in the day when he would be at ringside with his megaphone, and you'd have one of his clients. Oh, I've done that again with my fingers, the inverted commas. One of his clients. His clients would have someone in a hold, and you'd always hear him in the megaphone just in the background, just going, "Ask him, ref, ask him, like that." Just all that, come on, baby, come on, like that. Just, I used to love all that. It was just non-stop energy from ringside, and I absolutely used to love that about Jimmy Hart. He was very unique.
Let's give some honourable mentions before we hit the top 10 and we start working through those. So some honourable mentions here. Bill Alfonso from ECW. Sabu and Rob Van Dam, the man with the whistle. The man who you actually wanted to murder 9 out of 10 times. I always forgot that Bill Alfonso, again, was a referee for the WWF.
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, in wrestling terms, that's where the term has got a face you'd love to slap. That term sort of comes from in wrestling. That was Bill Alfonso, right?
It goes the same for commentators as well sometimes. Other honourable mentions go to Luna Vachon. Managed someone like Bam Bam Bigelow or Gangrel. Elizabeth, we're not going to spend a lot of time. We spent a lot of time talking about Elizabeth before. We'll do a show on Liz. Woman, Nancy Benoit, managed Doom. Managed Chris Benoit, was one of the valets for the Four Horsemen for a majority of the Monday Night Wars. Tremendous in-ring performer as well. One of the best to ever lace it up. Deborah McMichael, who managed Jeff Jarrett in WCW in the World Wrestling Federation and Stone Cold Steve Austin, also managed the late, great Mongo McMichael as part of the Four Horsemen. Okay. Tammy Sitch, the Sunny...
but to give her a juice, she was a good manager in those days. She was.
When you talk about divas, you have to talk about Tammy Sitch. You have to think of Sunny, because Sunny was the quintessential diva. She was the one that put the divas on the calendar. Really,
I'm so angry when it comes to the Sunny thing, because there's no denying back then in the 90s when she was there. She was absolutely beautiful woman. She played the role exceptionally well. And she did give the rebirth to female managers. And, it's unfortunate that her life choices and whatnot have gone off. We won't go into those. But I do still think she should be appreciated and give her her dues for what she did back then, in those prime days of her career.
Interesting. Okay, I don't disagree. I think she was. There's a lot that's been said about Tammy Sitch, and I mean she's a show we could do an entire show on Candido and Tammy Sitch down the line, and maybe we will. But Dark Side of the Ring, I think, did a really good job of kind of.
They did.
Emphasizing that, of course, available in the US. All right, let's hit the top 10 then. Number 10 on the list was JJ Dillon, the NWA, WCW, and the World Wrestling Federation. Now, JJ Dillon, known really as the manager of the Four Horsemen, and also the commissioner of WCW, the man who fired Kevin Nash at one point. I've interviewed this guy quite a few times before now and read the book, like Seagulls. And the thing about JJ is he's very passionate about what he does in the ring. He's very passionate about the business. He's very old school, but he has this ability to kind of, in my mind, emulate Jack Tunney. He's like the WCW version of Jack Tunney. Do you know what I mean? When you see Tunney on screen, instantly you knew he was the president of the World Wrestling Federation, kayfabe. Yep. When you look at JJ Dillon, you get that air of authority, of respect, of he commands that. And that was
rightly
his
so.
Unique selling point. Yeah, rightly so.
Yeah, rightly
that was
so.
His unique selling point. To be able to compensate and work meticulously with the Nature Boy Ric Flair, one of the biggest personalities of all time, to be able to link up with Ollie Anderson, with Tully Blanchard, with Arn Anderson, with Mongo McMichael, with Benoit, with Brian Pillman, with Lex Luger, with Barry Windham, and make it with Sting, and make it all seamless as though it's all part of one pot, right? That's a testament to that, to the ability.
Absolutely.
Of that.
Absolutely.
Anything to add?
No, it's great. It speaks for himself. I mean, anyone who knows wrestling well enough knows plenty about JJ Dillon, and as you said, he commanded that respect, and as I said, rightly so. That he's one of those names up there where you just go, do you know what? You've been there at the pinnacle of and worked with the creme de la creme of talent. Of those days, those generations and whatnot. And as you said, he made everything so seamless. And I thought that was a very good way to put it. Nothing really to add. It was just, for me, he's up there in top 5 for me.
Number 9 up on the list, coming up next, is a woman who took the AWA, the WWF, and the WWE, WCW and ECW by storm. Unfortunately, no longer with us. She was the manager. She was the manager of the Macho Man, the Macho King, Randy Savage. She was the manager of Zeus. She was the manager of Harlem Heat in WCW. She was the manager of the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels. She was sensational Sherry Martel. And in the episode we're going to do next week, you see a whole different side of her in Heroes or Villains. She was undeniably one of the, if not the greatest female manager in professional wrestling history. She had the ability to make any sort of interaction she do look legit. The ability, we talk about The Undertaker having the ability to recreate his character and redesign himself and change to the time. Sherry Martel adapted and changed over time. But the one thing that always remained was that psychotic streak that she had. You could see it in her eyes. Even when she was with Shawn Michaels, and we talked about this when we did the Rumbles in January, that, there was this weird relationship dynamic where she liked being dominated by HBK. She could flip it and, she would dominate someone like, I don't know, George the Animal Steel or the Macho Man Randy Savage. There was this always the way through. There's been this psychotic ability to flip the switch and be there. And that is her ability on the mic was, again, unparalleled by any other female, even male managers, I don't think, apart from a couple, could cut a promo quite like Sherry Martel. She was, if she was in today's era, she would be at the top of the game.
Sherry Martel, there's no debate in my opinion. Some people may disagree, but in my opinion, Sherry Martel is always going to be number 1 when it comes to female managers. She was the pinnacle. She is the one to the GOAT, as they say. And again, rightly so. And it is, as you said, it's unfortunate she's no longer with us. I really wish she was still here to not only maybe make the odd appearance and that, but I just wish I could, maybe have gone to like a live Q&A or something and just sit and listen to her stories and her experiences, and not only from as a former in-ring talent, but stories from backstage and stories of working with some of the biggest names there's ever been, whether she's been in their corner on the opposite side of the corner to them. She's the greatest of all time when it comes to female managers. There is no one that comes close to her. I know we'll talk about Miss Elizabeth. Miss Elizabeth was more as a valet than manager, in my opinion. I didn't think she really managed. She was more like a support.
The only one who comes close in terms of physicality is woman.
Yeah.
The only one who comes close. But then Sherry's got the all round. She's got the ability on the mic skills, which I don't think Nancy necessarily had as well as what Sherry does. So I would say she's the closest, but Sherry is way out there in pole position.
100%. But Sherry's number 1 any day of the week, any era. Sherry's the number 1 female manager of all time. That's non-negotiable as far as I'm concerned.
Number 8, he was the manager in the World Wrestling Federation and the World Wrestling Entertainment. He was a manager in Memphis. He was a manager in the USWA. He was a manager of not 1, but 2 superstars. Not 1, but 2 WWE Hall of Famers. 1 was the brother of the other one. It's Percy Pringle III, otherwise known as Paul Bearer. Paul Bearer, when you talk 90s gimmicks, you cannot not talk about Paul Bearer. Even I'm going to be honest here. It took me a few years, I was young, to work out that Paul Bearer was a play on Paul Bearer. On a funeral Paul Bearer.
Oh, Andy, I do love you, mate. I do love you, mate.
A few years. I wasn't the smartest knife in the drawer. I still aren't. I was a few nuts short of a fruitcake, and nuts are not even in fruitcake. So there you go. But the thing about Paul, I loved Paul Bearer back in the 90s.
Yeah.
That's the Paul Bearer I like, the early 90s Paul Bearer, right? Because it was the makeup, it was the face, it was the ability to hold the urn. Oh, yes. Oh, my Undertaker. It was the voice. It was everything. When they turned him heel and they aligned him with Kane back in 1998 and they changed the look, that to me is when you lost the magic of Paul Bearer.
Yeah, I agree. When he did that return, when he started teasing that Kane is alive, that whole thing, and he came out without the makeup and he just looked like a really ragged, like almost like a hobo Paul Bearer. He did. He looked like, you know, he was in the middle of a midlife crisis. Bless him. Like he came out all scruffy, his button, like his shirt was all, you know, an absolute mess. I didn't like that, and I didn't like. All right, it probably worked. When he screwed over Taker again in the 2000s, which, you know, where he managed Kane again, I didn't like that. I wasn't even a fan of him turning on Taker in, I think it was 96, wasn't it? Was it SummerSlam, the Boiler Room Brawl? That with the, you know, I wasn't a fan. I was angry with him because obviously I was younger. I was angry with him because I was thinking, how can we have Undertaker with no Paul Bearer? How? This just, you know, this isn't right. But you know, I enjoyed the Kane storyline with Kane coming in because back then it was a big deal. It was the first person you saw that really, really matched up to Undertaker. The first time you ever saw Taker very, very vulnerable. And it was a different dynamic, and credit to all of those involved for that happening and the way they made that happen. All right, I got a little bit annoyed where Kane would interfere in almost every match. Like, literally, doesn't matter what match it was on Raw. It was like, boom, Kane comes down, beats everyone, walks out, and it was like, you know, this is going to keep happening until Undertaker accepts the challenge. And I think Paul Bearer, if you look at, for example, I'll go back to it, WrestleMania 16, 2000, when we talked about the Kane and like Too Cool and like the Kane and Rikishi match against DX, for example, when you see them, you know, Too Cool and that dancing after the match, and you just see Paul Bearer's like sort of laughing, he's got a smile on his face. I think it was at that point of that career where he's just having fun with it. It's kind of like, I've done all the serious stuff before. I'm just here having a good time. And again, it's another one that is just so unfortunate that we've lost. And we can't, you know, get to hear those stories because we know from all the photographs that were taken over the years, you know, the time he would spend with Taker, Kevin Nash and all that, was it the Bow Street Crew? They nicknamed so in the photos. I'd love to hear stories from him, from his experiences with all of those guys. And it's unfortunate that we're, you know, he's not here.
I think Vince McMahon's got a lot to answer for. Do you know why?
Why?
Because in 2004 they buried him alive.
Concrete to the crypt. Do you know what? When I was in Dallas at the WrestleMania Access type thing, and I went through what was called the Undertaker's Graveyard, where they had all the props and everything from his. I might share some in the group. Yeah, I might share some of those in the Celebrate Wrestling group as well, because the stuff was like, you literally walk through, you're thinking, oh my God, this is like massive chunk. This is like 20 odd years of my life in front of me here. They actually had the concrete crypt booth that was seen then. They had it there, and I looked at it and I just went, this is the damn worst piece that's here. This is the one piece of Taker history that needs to go. It shouldn't be here.
What I would have loved if they'd done, you know, like in Star Wars where you've got Han Solo in the cryogenics and he's kind of got that the facial reaction. I kind of wish, and I kind of wish they'd done that for Paul Bearer, because then, when you go down Access, you could have seen Paul Bearer with his hand and his face against the concrete kind of imprinted on it. It just would have been,
They could have put in one of those little motion sensor things. Anytime anyone walks past, it just makes the voice of Paul Bearer just go,
It's a shame the dead man doesn't usually earn anymore. He could have just lit the light and it could have just gone like that. Anyway, we're taking the mick out of Paul Bearer, but we're taking the mick out of WWF creative.
We got nothing respect for Paul Bearer. Paul Bearer was just he was amazing. He is as great as the Undertaker was. He was a big, huge, significant part of what made that character work.
He made the Undertaker
so long. Yeah.
He made the Undertaker because the Undertaker, as good as what Mark Calloway was and is, basically just played a big 7-footer who didn't get hit.
If he had remained with Brother Love as his manager at the very beginning, if that had stayed the same for longer, I don't think it would have worked. But yeah, it was the right choice with the right person. Absolutely.
Switching them out and doing it with Paul Bearer just worked because he was the mouthpiece. The Undertaker didn't need to say anything. It came to Paul Bearer. And that's what makes a good manager, I think. And we'll talk about that in just a second, about what makes a good manager is that ability in the mouthpiece. Number 7, we've already talked about, was Jimmy Hart. Number 6 on the list surprised me, this one, because he's a man that was in the World Wrestling Federation. He's a man who managed Akeem, the African Dream. He's a man who managed Hercules, Power and Glory, Kamala, Slick.
Danny. Slick. Yeah. Another one I sought him out in Dallas. Like, I was walking around at WrestleCon. And at that time, I didn't have planned who I was going to meet or anything. I walked around. There was One Man Gang, a.k.a. Akeem, sitting there. And I was like, oh, One Man Gang's there. And then I literally looked to his left. And there he was. I was like, I said to my mate, I was like, I literally went child mode. I was like, mate, tell me that he's not the Doctor of Style sitting right there. And he went, that's the Doctor of Style sitting there. Tell me that's not Slick sitting there. That's Slick sitting there. Honestly, I was like a kid on Christmas Day. I was like, I'm going over there. And I did. And I didn't realise how tall the guy was. Like, I got a picture of the guy. Yeah, absolutely. Because I'd never actually seen him in real life before, only on TV and on VHS. And I met him. Oh, my God, the guy's honestly amazing. And at that time was when I was working on, as you know, and some of our listeners might not know, when I was working on developing the Kieran Cross character as a manager, and I was wearing, I think, my UKPW t-shirt at the time, which was a promotion here, local promotion to me that I worked for years, and he asked about it, and I said it's a promotion, and I said, oh, I've done commentary. I said, but I'm moving into becoming a manager, a heel manager, and he was like, He was like, oh, brother, tell me a bit more. And I was like, okay. So I told him what the character was. And he said, oh, tell me, like, give me a picture of that. So I showed him some photos from a photo shoot that I had done from Ollie Sander at Ringside Perspective took. He did a photo shoot with me. And I showed him, and he looked and he went, I love it. And he turned around and said, just remember that when you're doing it. And he was giving me these pointers that I didn't ask for. And I'm listening. I'm tuned in. I'm like, Slick's telling me this stuff. And honestly, it was one of the most fulfilling, most privileged moments I had. I've met some big names, but to hear from Slick, a manager that I absolutely loved for so many years, to just randomly, without asking or without prompting, give me that advice, it's something I'll forever cherish. And I absolutely loved him. And one thing I remember is when, I think it was Survivor Series, was it 89, where they handcuffed, where they handcuffed Hogan or Savage, wasn't it? And it was, and when he was going up, he kept going up, taunting them and laughing and teasing, like Elizabeth and all that. I love that, because for me, that is great heel work. That is like getting as much heat as you can in a family friendly environment show, and I loved it. And Slick for me is one of my absolute favorites, and I was really sad that he didn't really go beyond those sort of like 80s, very early 90s thing with the WWE, because I just thought it was absolutely brilliant. And the Jive Soul Bro theme song was iconic as well.
Yeah, the theme song for Slick, I think, was one of the greatest a manager has ever had, to be honest. He was a personality of his own. I mean, he's now an ordained minister living in Louisville, Kentucky. He was involved in Raw 1000 on July the 23rd, 2012, serving as the Reverend who presided over the wedding that involved Daniel Bryan and AJ Lee. He also inducted the Big Boss Man into the 2016 class of Hall of Fame, appearing as Slick, not as Reverend Slick. Now, in July 2016, he was named as part of the lawsuit that was filed against the WWE, alleging that wrestlers incurred traumatic brain injuries. It was dismissed. In September 29, he appeared on a podcast and was asked if he had any regrets being a part of that. He said no. Slick is and always will be one of the greatest wrestling managers in history.
And almost caused me to have a fire in my home on that Raw episode as well, because when he popped up on the screen, I realised that it was, I spat my drink out, it hit the fan and the fan sparked, and I had to quickly rush to the mains to turn it off before it blew up.
Now,
True story.
My phone has decided to die, so I'm hoping that was number 6. Number 5 on the list is a man from the World Wrestling Federation, a colourful, charismatic, rock and roll leading manager who also shot to fame as Mario in Super Mario. It is classy. No, it's not. It's Captain Lou Albano. Lou Albano, for the Rock and Wrestling connection back in the 1980s with Cyndi Lauper leading into WrestleMania 1, he was one of the biggest heel managers at the time, then making the transition to the face. And I remember watching Lou Albano back in the day going, what is it with this guy? With the long scraggly beard, with the
rubber
hands in it, to not really knowing much about him prior to the return in 1993 when he teamed up with the Head Shrinkers, Fatu and Samu. He was charismatic. He was definitely out there. Surprised he's number 5 in the list, I will admit. I thought there would be some other ones up there, but number 5 is a good spot for
It is. It is. I mean, those days I remember. I also remember, he was one the main animated characters in Hulk Hogan's Rock Wrestling animation.
Forget about that.
No, I don't. I loved it because it was a core of my childhood. I used to watch it. I've got every episode. So I look back at it on fun memories. It was daft, it was silly, but it was very 80s and it was very my childhood. But for me, when you read it was the Super Mario thing, I remember when I first watched the Super Mario Super Show animation series, and they would have those live action segments with Captain Lou Albano playing Mario, and straight away I was like, that looks like Captain Lou Albano, and then the credits were running and it would say that it was Lou Albano. No way. And I used to get excited about these little crossovers because these people are coming out of professional wrestling and they're going to all these other things that I love.
I used to watch the Super Mario Super Show all the time when it was on Saturday mornings here in the UK. And it was a great little cartoon. I like going back and watching it occasionally on YouTube.
I have been recently, because my partner's youngest son, he's very much got into Mario the last couple of years. And occasionally I'll put some episodes on YouTube for him and they still have all those live action segments in and he enjoys it as well. And I watch them and I'm just like, I remember this episode. I've not seen it in like 35 years, but I love this episode,
Yeah, the other one I watched is from the A-Team. I think it's season 1. It's called Body Slam, and it's the first appearance of Hulk Hogan in the A-Team with Mr. T. And, Gene Okerlund's in it, Tom Billington's in it, Davies in it. I think Lou Albano is in it as well. In fact, I'm pretty sure Lou Albano was in the episode as well. So that's worth watching. Captain Lou Albano, number 5 on our list. Now, number 4, we are in to the final stretch because it gets a bit controversial from number 3.
It probably will do.
number 4 on the list was a manager. We would know him mostly from the World Wrestling Federation. He managed tag teams predominantly. He managed the Warlord and the Barbarian. He managed Axe and Smash and Crush. He also managed the 500-pound Polynesian former World Wrestling Federation champion Yokozuna. Mr. Fuji with the cane. Now, I have no problems with Mr. Fuji being number 4 in this list. I don't think he needs to be in the top 3, but number 4, I'm happy with. If you think of pro wrestling in the 80s and the 90s, you think of Mr. Fuji, one of the most controversial managers, coming out in the Japanese suit, coming out in the suit with the bowler hat and the cane, the interaction, never really cut a promo, obviously, but the transition to Yokozuna's manager coming out in the Japanese garb, he was tremendous. He was brilliant.
To quote Shawn Michaels in 2006, I believe it was, I love Mr. Fuji. Honestly, the guy, I always loved Fuji. The only time I hated Fuji was when he was managing Yokozuna because of how crafty he was then, and I didn't want Yokozuna to be better in the likes of Bret Hart and Hogan and that. That's the only time I disliked Mr. Fuji. Even to this day, I remember his heel turn when he turned on Demolition to join the Powers of Pain, where he pulled down that rope and one of the Demolition guys went over the top. And after the match, like, to be fair to him, and this is what I loved about him, was he wasn't intimidated by Demolition. When he stood there like that and the camera's on him and he's going, I don't care. I'm the boss. I did not pull down that rope. And literally, he does not care that, like, how tough Demolition were. He's standing there. He's like, I'm the boss. Like, you're listening to me. I absolutely loved it. And what a way to turn Demolition face, Fuji and Powers of Pain heel in one segment. It was so well done. And Fuji, for over the years, I mean, even when he wasn't on TV that much, anytime he appeared on the screen, he would get a massive pop. The fans always knew who he was, always remembered the things he did, and he was always much loved for it, for all of what he did. And yeah, Mr. Fuji for me. I mean, even WrestleMania 9, one of your favourite WrestleManias, and you say WrestleMania 2000 is controversial.
Hey.
His whole segment on the mic with Hogan, Hogan, you big man, my Yokozuna issue your challenge and all that. Like, honestly, on the mic, the guy could do it. He didn't do it very often, but he could do it. And Fuji, I'm happy with him being at number 4, because if I was to give my top 4, I go with Heenan, Heyman, I would then go Jimmy Hart, then Mr. Fuji in terms of male managers. That would be mine.
Let's just hold off on that because we're coming into the top 3. Mr. Fuji, not only an accomplished manager, he was an accomplished wrestler as well. He won the AWA Southern Tag Team Championships with Toru Tanaka. He won the NWA Georgia Tag Team titles, the NWA Canadian Heavyweight Championship, the Toronto version from Maple Leaf Wrestling, that promotion that's just made a resurgence under Scott D'Amore. He won the NWA Mid-Atlantic Tag Team Championships with Tenryu. He was honored in the Hall of Fame for New England Pro Wrestling in 2013. He was the British Commonwealth Heavyweight Champion for New Zealand, for NWA New Zealand. He was ranked 445 out of 500 best singles wrestlers during the PWI in 2003. He was the Worldwide Wrestling Federation Tag Team Champion 5 times with Toru Tanaka and Mr. Saito. He was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2007. He won the World Wrestling Council North American Heavyweight and North American Tag Team Championships, both one time. He was also he was also awarded in the Wrestling Observer newsletter the Worst on Interviews Award in 1993, the Worst Manager of the Year 1984 to 1985. To have a word with Mr. Meltzer about that. That was dreadful. But Mr. Fuji, number 4, Master Fuji, Mr. Fuji, left the World Wrestling Federation in 1996. You know, he left because of the fact he couldn't get in the ring, replaced by Jim Cornette and Clarence Mason during the teaming of Owen Hart and Yokozuna, one of the legendary managers in professional wrestling. Now, we are in the top 3, and this is where I think it gets slightly controversial. Okay? Because number 3, actually, do you know what? I'm throwing this list out the window now. Go on.
Why? What's made you switch?
I'm going to tell you what the number 3 and the number 2 was. The number 1, I think, is universal. We're going to go with that. Number 3 on the list was Paul Heyman. Number 2 on the list was Jim Cornette. No. I love Jim Cornette. I would go Paul Heyman number 2, Jim Cornette number 3.
Yeah, but even still, I'd put. Yeah, I love Jim Cornette, but I'd still put a couple of other names in front of Cornette. I would.
Why? Because that's interesting. Cornette is one of the most controversial, respected, but well-known managers within the industry. Not only from a creative standpoint, but from a
standpoint. To be fair, dude, like I said, personally, Cornette's up there. He's top 5. But as I said, I would probably put. As I said, I would probably go. Yeah, I'd probably go with Heenan, Heyman, the double H. Heenan, Heyman. Yeah, maybe Cornette, then Jimmy Hart, then Fuji. For me,
okay, intriguing.
And then I would probably go with that if we're talking about male ones, because Sherry, for me, she would go in just. See, Sherry would be difficult because for me. In terms of female, she goes number 1 spot if it's female managers. She's number 1. No one comes close. Even in the men's, if you put her in a discussion with men, I put her level number 1 with Heenan for what she did. It's just because it's Paul Heyman for me. Paul Heyman's just, and the fact that Heyman is still going now and still as influential and as significant now, that makes me argue. For me, it's hard to place Heyman because Heyman is so unique for me. That's the thing. Heyman is so unique. It's really difficult.
If I was making this list myself, I would. If you'd asked me 2 years ago, I would have put Bobby Heenan as number 1.
Oh, Heenan stays at number 1. It's just.
But I now consider Bobby Heenan and the Wise Man to be equal.
Yes.
So I will have a joint number 1.
Yes.
My number 2 would most likely be Jimmy Hart. My number 3 most likely would be Slick.
Mm-hmm.
My number 4 would be Sherry. My number 5, that's where it gets slightly difficult. My number 5, that's where I struggle. Paul Bearer, most likely. But, I think that when you look at what makes, and this is how we're going to round this up, this greatest wrestling manager, what makes the great wrestling manager is their ability to not only connect with the audience, because they have to, but to be able to be a mouthpiece or an extension of the client that they are managing. Now,
absolutely,
take someone like Bobby Heenan. Bobby Heenan was the full package. He was the triple threat. He could cut a promo. He could get the crowd irate. He could get the heel heat, and he could work. There was nobody else in the industry then or now that was as good as Bobby Heenan.
He was one of the main reasons why I used to enjoy watching the Tuesday Night Titans show that WWF used to have in the 80s. He would come on. He was everything. He was despicable. He was hilarious. I mean, the guy was a natural comedian. Honestly, there was nothing Heenan couldn't do. He would make every single thing work. Everything from the subtle things like WrestleMania 9, coming in on the camel back to front and then making having a whole meltdown over it and things like that. His Hall of Fame speech is joint number 1 to Heyman's because they're both very different speeches. Heenan's was almost like a part stand-up comedy show. The fact that he turns around, his closing statement with what he turns around and he says about the environment he was in. Honestly, I just honestly, it was just nothing he just couldn't do. And even when he would get his comeuppance, you just loved it. No matter what he did. But for me, his closing one, his closing lines from his Hall of Fame speech is just the greatest ever. And Bobby Heenan, it's so sad to see the decline in his health. The struggles to where he couldn't speak. You'd see the photos of how frail he looked to almost unrecognizable.
There was that shocking photo that was released maybe 6 months before his passing.
Yeah, and to be fair, his was the first Hall of Fame speech that made me cry, because it was that moment where he said, "God, I wish Monsoon was here."
Yeah, and I think that was part of the appeal of Bobby Heenan, was that relationship he had with Gorilla. I mean, the WCW run, I wouldn't really say was his best work. I think that was, he wasn't happy there, and that's been well documented. But Bobby the Brain Heenan, without a doubt, number one. But it does go to this number two position, and everybody is going to be subjective. And that's the thing about these greatest lists. Everybody is subjective. Paul Heyman, though, if you look at Bobby Heenan as the template, Paul Heyman has fully encompassed that template and added some extra layers onto it. From the days in 1991 of WCW and the Dangerous Alliance to the founding of ECW, the takeover of ECW from Eastern to Extreme Championship Wrestling, to his time managing the Beast Brock Lesnar, to his time as the wise man for the Bloodline. He has an ability to, again, connect with that audience. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Paul Heyman. And the crowd love him. Yeah. You cannot, even today in this new WWE, this new stable that he's created with Seth Rollins, the crowd can't boo him. They love the guy. He's got their respect. First active manager to still be going in the WWE Hall of Fame. There's only two active. One of them is Rey Mysterio, is an in-ring performer, and one of them is Paul Heyman. It says a lot about the guy.
What can you say about Heyman that hasn't been said already? Another person, like when you hear these stories about, how he got into the business, with his photography and, I was there for his Hall of Fame speech, and I'm very grateful because I think it was the greatest Hall of Fame speech there's been so far. And, for a guy who, I loved the Dangerous Alliance. What a collective of talent that was.
Yeah.
That for me was kind of like almost like an early evolution, but with more members, because you had Rick Rude in there. You had an up-and-coming, stunning Steve Austin, Brian, but you had these younger names as well with the experience. And Heyman was just, Paulie Dangerously, as he was known then, was just, he made it all work. He was the glue that kept it going. He was the one that made it work. And the fact that he could work on the mic, as we have very well known over the years, how great he is on the mic. If there's anyone you want to listen to that could give you any constructive criticism, tell you where you're going wrong, what you can do to better yourself, what you could do to get you over or put yourself in the best position, the best person to approach, to go to, the best things you could change and improve on. One person in the modern day that you listen to and you take every single word as he says is Paul Heyman.
Oh, yeah.
He is what I call, because he's still here, Mr. Wrestling. I call him Mr. Wrestling.
he's missed the personality. He's missed the hustle. Heyman hustle, and I think the WWE was worse off without having Heyman in there. I think the talent was worse off for not having Heyman around backstage because they can just get the rub and use that thing. So that, ladies and gentlemen, was our greatest wrestling managers of all time. Do you agree with the list? I'm assuming some people won't.
No, I mean, I don't agree with it entirely because, like I said, I would maybe swap with it. It's almost an impossible task, really, to list the proper top 5 or a top 10 without having to keep trying to juggle it. And then every time you think about it or you overthink it, positions might slightly change and you'll try and validate to yourself or others why. I just think the way we should look at it is that, especially for us of our age, that where we were lucky to be young and be exposed to professional wrestling and these managers at an early age, and to enjoy so much of what they did. I just think we were lucky and privileged to see them in their primes doing what they did and bring, add a little something extra to those larger than life characters. What I will say from someone who has briefly been a manager and hopes to go back into doing that again at some point in the near future when my health is a bit better, I feel that management in wrestling is becoming a lost art. We don't have nearly as many managers as we used to that are as influential, as key to the talent that they're working with. I also think, especially here in the UK on the independent scenes, there aren't nearly enough. And I remember having a conversation back, I think it was last January, with Lee McAteer, who is co-owner of Progress Wrestling. And we was having this conversation about managers and the lack of, and he really went, you know what? He said, that's a really good point. He said, I don't know why we don't, like, UK doesn't really have many managers these days. He said, it is bizarre. Why not? And, there are, I think it's overlooked now how key and important and how valuable sometimes managers or valets can be to a wrestler. They can make a wrestler improve. They could also be the missing part of a wrestler who might need that little extra something added to their persona, and they might not realize it until they're actually put with them. Sometimes it's a case of, okay, maybe we'll put you with someone and we'll see how it goes. And then all of a sudden it clicks, like Shawn Michaels when he was put with Sherry. She was that catalyst that really brought him away from that tag team wrestler into becoming a star himself and finding his own path. And whether they're still here, retired, still working, or they're no longer with us, as a big fan of management, of managers from all different eras, thank you for your contribution to the stars that we've grown to love, loathe, and be entertained by, because without you, there would have been a massive void, especially in our memories of growing up in this business that we love of professional wrestling. So, yeah, whether you're still here with us, still working, retired, or not here with us, thank you, because you deserve as much appreciation and love as the talent you worked with. So that's what I'll say.
There we go. That was a very well said. Well,
yeah. And could I please just ask a favour of you, Andy, because I know this will go to edit, and I know sometimes you like to put audio clips of a promo or something in. If you can you find that closing moment of Heenan's speech where he's describing about the environment he's working with, about bulldogs, and he lists all the animals and all that, and he says, "And I'm the weasel." That one, because that is the greatest line in Hall of Fame history, is where he's describing, he's working with a gorilla, i.e. Monsoon, bulldogs, all those, and that, because that is the greatest. If you can find it, please put it in, because some people might not have heard it yet. And honestly, when you hear it, it's best, and it's Bobby Heenan to a T. So yeah, there you go.
You like giving me extra work, don't you?
It's
like, great. Yeah, I'll see what I can do. Right, next week on the show, right here at Celebrate Wrestling, we're going to be going very, very old school, because we're going to be going to the Heroes of Wrestling pay-per-view. Now, this is quite possibly one of the worst pay-per-views ever created in professional wrestling.
I call it the PRM.
Yeah. The concept are the legends from yesteryears settling the scores. And yes, they
probably wish they hadn't.
Probably. Anyway, we'll talk more about that next week. That's Heroes of Wrestling. Don't forget, this week at Celebrate Wrestling, we are all over the shop. Of course, you've got us on Saturday. Mitch and Dimitri from the Greek World Order will be taking over the podcast stream to the alternate commentary table. They're going to be doing everything, I would imagine, from the alternate scenario to the chair rankings to what power rankings to whatever you want. Then on Sunday, Mr. Maguire will be back with Mr. Meltzer to do Maguire on Wrestling, episode 105. I think. We'll be back talking all about professional wrestling. Backlash was this past Saturday. We've covered all of that this week on the show. But keep in touch with us at Celebrate Wrestling on Facebook. All you need to do is search for Celebrate Wrestling and click that like button. If you click that, you'll answer a few questions because that's what Meta tells us you have to do. And then Mike will let you in. Once you've done that, you're part of the World Order. You're part of the CWO. For life. The Celebrate World Order. You are part of Celebrate Wrestling. You can interact with all of us from Mike to Joe to Mitch, Dimitri, Stefan, myself, whatever. We were part of the great wrestling community and we are very active over there. Also, don't forget the t-shirts are back. You can be a part of the Greek World Order with the GWO t-shirt. You can wear that with pride universally wide, or you can celebrate wrestling with the lowest special, available on pre-order from the Facebook page. It's well worth checking them out. There's some great looking shirts. And what better way than to support Canada? Canada made, Canada produced. We ain't going to go down the politics route. That's it for us. We'll be back next week with more Legends of. Oh, for God's sake, I've done it again. We'll be back with more Legends and Champions, not Legends of Wrestling, although that could have been the name of the show. Next week, looking at the Heroes of Wrestling pay-per-view. Until then, for Stefan, my name is Eazy-E. Andy, I've never done that before in my life, and I'm never going to do it.
Well, yeah, you know, you got to try something once, and it failed miserably. And, you know, we move on.
We will see you at the matches. Bye-bye now.
Bye.
This has been Legends and Champions with Andy Evans. Thank you for listening.